Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another economic capsule on the Puerto Rico economy. Today, as last week, we continue with this agonizing atrocities between Russia and Ukraine, and of course, it is the impact that the entire globe is feeling, especially through runaway oil prices, as we are experiencing in the gas pump, as we will be paying in terms of our electricity bills, as well as all walks of life and economic activity. Let me depict for you the first graph, which is the oil prices with the real GNP growth in Puerto Rico from 1975 through 2022, an estimate because the fiscal year official figures have not come out yet. The red line is the price of oil, the West Texas Intermediate price of oil per barrel since 1975 through March 3rd, 2022. Right now it's at $111, and maybe as we are speaking it could be even higher than this. Notice that compared with 1975, when it used to be $7.15 per barrel, and that was coming from $4 and change back in 1974, when the first oil shock took place in 1975. Notice the blue line is the real GNP growth in Puerto Rico. Inflation has been taken out. And notice that Puerto Rico has been in economic recessions, negative economic growth, when those spikes in oil prices have taken place, as it happened in 1975, as it occurred in 1981, 82, 83. All those negative real GNP growth rates, and then we were sort of hovering between 1 and 2.5. Even at some point in time back in 1996, we were slightly above 3%, but then with 9/11, again, we went into a slight recession of negative 0.3%, as you see there. Oil prices started picking up back in that time, and it was $30 per barrel. And notice how they just went upwards, and they continued upwards until about 2015. Then relative stability, as the red line depicts, and now again skidding upwards and on a runaway race. What will that imply, since Puerto Rico has been in this depression since 2007, and we were just trying to come out of that with leaving the pandemic of COVID-19 behind us, and with all the federal funds coming for reconstruction after Hurricane Maria in 2017, and with the CARES Act and all that, which at least it would help Puerto Rico in terms of reconstruction and assisting people in their day-to-day life. But unfortunately, things may appear to be changing very quickly. The second table that I'm going to depict for you is some statistical proof as to the relationship between oil prices per barrel and the rate of growth, the real GNP growth rate in Puerto Rico. And this is a statistical tool called a correlation. It doesn't mean that one variable impacts the other. It just says that these two variables may be moving in the same direction, either positive or in an inverse or negative relationship. And notice here that from 1975 through 2002, Puerto Rico and the GNP growth and oil prices have a negative relationship of negative 60.3%. Had it been 100%, it's a perfect correlation. So close to more than 50% is significant. Notice the second period that we are depicting here in this table, from 1980 through 1990, is negative 70.5%. So the correlation increasing, again, it's negative. It's an inverse relationship saying when price of oil rises, so the GNP growth rate of Puerto Rico goes down, ceteris paribus, absent other factors. This is just the relationship that we are depicting here. And then the most recent period, 2000 through 2010, it's negative 79.8%. So it is a relationship of almost 80% negative. Oil prices rise, the GNP growth of Puerto Rico in real terms declines. And then finally, this last table, it's a matrix that I'm depicting the sensitivity of two important variables with respect to Puerto Rico's GNP growth. Those two variables are the price of oil, as I have been depicting in the previous two graphs and table, and the rate of growth of the U.S. economy, again in real terms and in the same fiscal year as Puerto Rico. True, these two economies moved more or less Puerto Rico back in the 1960s, GNP growth above the US GNP growth, and then more or less moving in tandem during the 1970s, part 80s, and then in the 1990s throughout now, more or less Puerto Rico's GNP growth lower than the US GNP growth. So even though these two economies, their rate of growth have been sort of, there's a break here in terms of a gap that has been widening, there is still a relationship, and it is important to find out how sensitive is GNP growth in Puerto Rico to these two variables. On the horizontal top part, the green part, is the US GNP growth rate in our fiscal year in real terms, and it goes for these scenarios from negative 1.7% GNP growth in the US through to 2.1% positive growth in the US. And then on the vertical side, under the blue segment, is the price of oil, dollar per barrel, and again, different scenarios, say going from $10.90 at the top almost to the end $150 per barrel. Not unheard of. Certain analysts are already saying this is a possibility if OPEC, the cartel for petroleum, is not willing to increase oil production so as to really take care of all this shortage of demand caused by this terrible problem between Russia and Ukraine, and all the sanctions that are being placed through Western Europe as well as the US. So the entire globe is really making Russia a pariah and impacting negatively the growth of the Russian economy. So as you can see there, if we go to negative real GNP growth in the US of negative 1.7%, and we go to $150 per barrel, notice you go down that column under negative 1.7%, and what is the GNP real growth rate that is forecasted for Puerto Rico? A whopping negative 7.8% real GNP growth. That is a deep recession, more or less a depression, and Puerto Rico has been in a depression since 2007, when we thought that COVID-19 epidemic was leaving this horizon of negative growth, and we were on the verge of restructuring our public debt, coming out of bankruptcy, and really getting our bearings in terms of infrastructure. Then now we are going to be hit with all these increases in oil prices. Notice that even if the GNP growth in the US were positive, 2.1%, but the price of oil were $150, go to the extreme right of that column, Puerto Rico would still be negative 4.6%, and you can see the wide range of all those scenarios that are possibilities. They are forecast, and they are not to really frighten you, but really for those out there, be it business, be it at a personal level, be it the executive branch of Puerto Rico, be it the legislature, please listen. We need for you to focus on what economic growth Puerto Rico can undertake under these circumstances, and focus more on making the executive branch more lean and mean, that all those increases that are being given out wage salary for past history. They have to really be focusing on these employees, really now push forward in terms of making Puerto Rico this lean and mean machine and making sure that we are undertaking economic growth. I mean, the US is looking for manufacturing of chips. Taiwan is the world producer of chips, and that is a problem from the standpoint of national security. There's so many products, but Puerto Rico has to be out there in front of the table saying, we are present here, we can focus, we can deal with this, but we have to really focus on what is our plan. Don't forget, those of you who like our economic capsules, to go to YouTube under the voice of Heidie Calero. Give us a like and subscribe. And don't forget, the economy is all of us. Thank you.